This Week in Startups is brought to you by Kruze Consulting, a leading tax CPA who works exclusively with funded startups. Go to cruiseconsulting.com/twist and get a free tax consultation and R&D tax credit white paper. DigitalOcean, providing the easiest cloud platform to deploy, manage, and scale applications. Sign up today and receive a free $100 credit at do.co/twist. And HubSpot. Join thousands of startups that are growing better with HubSpot for Startups. Learn more and get extra benefits for being a Twist listener now at hubspot.com/startups/twist.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and I am thrilled to have Caterina Fake on the program. Finally, I met her 15 years ago or so down in San Diego at eTech. Tim O'Reilly would have a conference for people who were in something called Web 2.0. This was the era after the dot-com bust when every company had failed and only idiots and schmucks and true believers wanted to have anything to do with the fraud that was the internet, or at least that's how the public felt about it. Well, she started working on a site called Flickr, which previously, before that, was a game. And that got sold to Yahoo for around 25 or 30 million bucks. And at the time, it was reported that Yahoo had overpaid and it was the most ridiculous purchase. And at the same time, they bought Delicious, Josh Schechter's company, for 20 million. And we had sold Weblogs Inc. It was considered the boom era in Silicon Valley during Web 2.0. But a lot has changed since then. And she's gone on to become an investor like myself, an author, board member, and podcaster, and parent. Mm-hmm. All of these things have happened in the last 15 years.
15 years.
It's crazy, isn't it? We got old.
We got old, but we look good.
We look good. I think we look pretty good, all things considered. It is a little weird that you were so famous during that internet era for Flickr, but you meet people today, they're just like, what's Flickr, right? Like, they don't know. Mm-hmm. You meet a lot of people, they just think of you as an investor.
Oh, I don't know. I've done a lot of things in the intervening years, including, getting involved with Etsy and being the chairman of Etsy for
That's a big
all
deal.
of that time.
Yeah.
That was kind of an 8-year journey, which was a long time.
Pretty amazing, because if you think about Etsy, that was a New York company that was turned down by almost everybody for investment, right? Like, that was like a weird idea.
It was not popular. I walked it around the valley. I took it famously to people like Reid Hoffman.
Yeah, he's like a hard pass.
Right. I think it was not obvious to a lot of people.
Why?
Because, the questions that I were asked were, so let me get this. That's like it's a bunch of women knitting sweaters and selling them to each other. Yeah. I'm like, yes. It's a tremendous opportunity. and I think that it was just not obvious until the numbers started to roll in.
Why was it obvious to you that was a thing?
It was very obvious to me because here we were at the beginning of what I think a lot of us sensed was a big movement. Right? It was a movement. It was the DIY, handmade, maker, be your own boss. Yeah. Right? It was
Start your own business.
It was actually a kind of an exhaustion with big box retail and Target and Walmart and all of those companies.
Yeah.
And so this was a return to, handmade soap.
Yeah.
Right? And carpentry that was actually done by your uncle in his garage. And it was like a whole movement. And the entire following decade was about that. Another investment that I made during that time was Blue Bottle Coffee. And Blue Bottle Coffee was at the forefront of the artisanal food movement.
That's interesting, because Blue Bottle, when I heard Tony Conrad invested, which was way after you, I think.
No, he was the one who
showed it to you?
Put together the whole angel contingent. He was on it.
What was that first round?
He was on it.
What was the valuation
He was
and the
on
amount
it.
of money?
It was not high.
Like
it was
5
not
million,
high.
10 million?
Yeah, it was somewhere in that range. And I actually at this point don't remember, but
sold for $700 million.
To Nestle. And the the thing is that it was also at the time an odd thing for tech investors to invest in food. And it just seemed, at the time I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't know anything about coffee. In fact, as you and I are sitting here, I noticed that we both drink tea.
Yeah.
We're tea drinkers. And I, at the time, had never drunk
into that.
the coffee.
Yeah.
I invested in it because I could see that it was a extremely strong brand.
Right.
It had James Freeman, who is this coffee guru, who had been building it in literally a garage on Hayes Street for 10 years. And I live near there. And so I would go down, there'd be lines through the block. And I was like, this is a tremendous brand. Right. And, I had the misfortune of like an entire Wired Japan television crew showing up in my office one day to interview me about Blue Bottle coffee. And the very first question was, so what's so special about this coffee? What does it taste like? And I'm like,
Yeah. You're like, this is a time to lie.
I'm not sure I can answer that question. So
it's smooth. It's very smooth.
But I know a good brand.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's also very true that startup had just unbeatable authenticity, right? It had a coffee obsessed founder who had been working at it.
Product,
like toiling.
Founder product fit, I guess we call that in the industry.
Yeah. I think that's what it's called these days. But it was, you don't find anybody as into coffee as James.
I heard, this is somebody told me the secondhand, they used to know how to manage the queue so that there was a line at all times. So they took their time.
Oh, is this?
And that was part of the training was actually to have there be a little bit of a line and to make it worth the wait.
Okay.
So not like scarcity, but, buzz.
That's super interesting. And also possibly they had several, famously the Gibraltar, which was had like off menu items that people who were in the know and true connoisseurs.
Yes. I think a Gibraltar is like a cortado. It's like a equal parts milk and
something like
foam
this.
Or something like that. It's like 20. Isn't it amazing we're sitting here in 2019 and there are like 40 different coffee beverages and the average like truck driver or person in middle America or in China who just came down from the farm country, they know what these 40 items are. It speaks to that artisanal trend that you identified.
Right. So, a lot of what we do with Yes VC is look for those kinds of movements. We look for things that there's the momentum behind them. You see, like all of the most successful investments that I have made, Etsy, Blue Bottle, Cloudera, which was part of open source movement, and Kickstarter, all of them were part of some kind of unstoppable movement.
Right.
And when you find that as an investor or as a founder of a startup, so much of your work is done for you. There's momentum. There's customers that are waiting for your product. There are journalists who are standing by to write about this new movement and being part of it. There's employees who are enthusiastic about working for you.
Yeah.
And so there's so many things in your favor. And, if a company manages to catch that wave, it's magical for everybody. Yeah.
How'd you get involved in Kickstarter? I remember my friend Sonny Bates had told me about it in the early days.
It was
and
Sonny
I missed
Bates.
it. Yeah.
It was Sonny Bates.
I knew Sonny Bates was a force in New York. She was a recruiter back in the day for people who don't know. I knew her during Web 1.0.
And she also knows everybody. Still is. And
she should have been a VC.
She
would have cleaned up.
She had access to lots of deals.
She introduced you to Perry?
To Perry. Yeah. And literally it was a PowerPoint deck. Neither of them knew how to code. And it's funny because what had happened is I had a good friend, Andy Bayo, who is the founder of Upcoming. I don't know if you remember Upcoming.
Of course. That was like one of the collection of Flickr will do photos, Delicious will do links, and then a bunch of people will do events. Yeah.
And that was Andy Bayo's company. Yeah. And right before I got involved and invested in Etsy, Andy had come to me and said, I really think that there should be a marketplace for handmade goods. And I said, oh, Andy, 2 weeks ago, I invested in this startup called Etsy.
Yeah.
And I ouch.
Sorry.
But what had happened was he had come over to my place and we were having this conversation. I was like, Andy, what are you going to do next? And he said, oh, I really think there should be some kind of way that people can get together and fund creative projects together. Right?
Wow.
And so I have this conversation with him. He's working on this new idea. And then 2 weeks later, I meet Perry. through
my Lord.
And I said, hey, here's these two guys. I think it was Yancey and Perry.
Yancey and Perry, yeah.
And they had a PowerPoint deck and an idea and a lot of energy behind it. And I really like these guys. And so I said, I know somebody that you should meet. He's the technical guy that you're missing.
Yeah.
And so he became the CTO.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So
that's a really weird group, those cats over at Kickstarter, because they made it into a B corporation before.
No, it's even more than B Corp. It's a public benefit corporation.
A public benefit corp. Isn't that what a B Corp is? Isn't that the same thing or no?
Different.
Different.
A B Corp is like a certification.
But a public benefit corporation. What does that even mean?
Which is distinct from it. I don't know if you remember this, but Etsy was the first B Corp to go public.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, with their kind of like B Corp certification. So
was that a hindrance or a benefit when you look back on it?
I actually, it's hard to say because there's a lot of noise about it on the street because it was the first one. But I don't know if you've been watching what's been going on, currently, but there's all of this new activity around new funding models, including, Public Benefit Corp, the Zebra movement.
The Zebra movement.
Have the zebras been on your show?
We'll get back. No. I have some strong feelings about that.
Why? What are they? What are your feelings?
I'll tell you when we get back after this quick break on This Week in Startups. Always been wondering about these R&D tax credits. You know about these things, research and development, and you get tax back. Well, startups can save thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars in payroll taxes next year by taking advantage of R&D tax credits this year, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. You need a startup tax expert like Kruze Consulting, Kruze. Most tax CPAs simply do not know anything about startups. You know that. You go to them, they don't know what a startup does, they don't know how you make money, let alone these R&D tax credits. Well, I love Kruze Consulting, and some of their clients are going to save $3 million a year in payroll taxes. That is incredible. And when they came on board to be one of our partners here at This Week in Startups, I was like, hey, do you have any of our portfolio companies using your product and services? And they're like, oh, just calm. I'm like, oh, unicorn, yum, yum. And they also have Superhuman, which, it's kind of like maybe my 8th unicorn sitting there. Well, here is what the VP of Operations.com said about Kruze Consulting. As a startup, moving quickly is a top priority for us, and we just needed to get our tax returns done. After we uploaded our docs, we got our tax return in 3 days. E-filing was confirmed by day 4. Super responsive and helpful. That is my friend Casey over at calm.com, one of my great investments of all time. So if you are a seed or venture-funded Delaware C Corp, you know what to do. Go to cruiseconsulting.com/ wait for it, twist, TWIST. cruiseconsulting.com/ twist, KRUZE, consulting.com/TWIST. Get a white paper that will explain this R&D tax credit at cruiseconsulting.com/twist and get a free tax consultation. They're a great team over there. I highly recommend them. Superhuman, Calm, all of these great companies recommend them. Go ahead and visit cruiseconsulting.com/twist. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. We do the show twice a week, and you can write an iTunes review, and we'll give you a high five. Thank you for doing that. It helps. My guest today, Caterina Fake. You can follow her, Caterina, on the Twitter, and she has her own VC firm called Yes VC. They've done about a dozen or so investments. You can go see that at their website. And most of all, you haven't been out there on the speaking circuit like we used to be when we were kids 15 years ago.
Oh my God, I wore myself out.
We would just say yes to everything, wouldn't we?
We said yes to everything. We were constantly on planes. We had no kids.
No kids.
Right.
And we were desperate to get some attention or money for our projects.
Right.
When was your first South by? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I think it was actually 2001.
Me too. I went with Doug Rushkoff, and there was no convention center yet. It was all at the Driscoll, like that conference room's there.
Yes, that
hotel. It was
hotel.
very small.
Yes, it was a small event.
And what I remember most of all was they couldn't get anybody from Silicon Valley or New York to come, and so they just convinced us by putting us on panels. Right. And I would be on a panel with 7 people, and there'd be 10 people in the audience. Mm-hmm. They would change panels, and 3 people would stay on the panel. 4 people from the audience would get up on the stage. The other 4 people would get off and sit in the room. Yes. It was just we were talking to each other.
It was all it was. They were trying to get it off the ground because it had been a music festival.
It was a music festival at the time.
Right.
They didn't have film or interactive or internet or web. But she's also promoting her new podcast, Should This Exist? And it's debuting on February 21st. And I want you to go into your favorite pod player right now and subscribe. iTunes, Overcast, Spotify, everywhere. And it's the sister publication, if I understand it correctly, of Reid Hoffman's Masters of Scale.
Masters of Scale, indeed.
Masters of Scale.
Masters of Scale. Should This Exist?
Should This Exist? Now, what is
what
is the premise of Should This Exist?
So we have been in the Valley on, building and building and building. And I think that at this point, we can build anything, right? I think that we have been doing moonshot after moonshot after moonshot, right? And I don't think the question anymore is, can this exist?
Right.
But really, should this exist?
What a great idea. Did you come up with that idea or did they recruit you for that?
They recruited me for this. And
Really?
And they are the geniuses behind TED, of course. It's June.
Yeah, it's
Cohen.
June. Right.
It's June doing it.
Yeah.
And Darren Tritt from NPR and, a kind of an amazing production team.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about this stuff forever, as you know.
Sure.
Right? I have been talking about
The late night discussions.
like humanizing technology. This has been my, special sauce.
Yeah.
Ever since the beginning.
Yeah.
And if you look at all of those companies that we were just talking about, my own company, Flickr, we look at Etsy, Kickstarter, they're very human companies.
Yeah, they deserve to exist. They help humanity.
They connect people. They're very community oriented. I think they build on a lot of the things that are very essential to people's selves, their creativity, their self-expression, talking and connecting with other people. And that was what drew me to the internet to begin with. And should this exist, is kind of its time has come. Right. And this conversation, I think, is already happening all over the world. And, Silicon Valley has gotten a lot of black eyes lately.
Oh,
and
brutal.
It's been,
Why? Why is Silicon Valley in the crosshairs?
Silicon Valley is in the crosshairs. I think, honestly, it really came to a head in the election when it seemed as if there had been election propagandizing perhaps on the social media channel. It was like really hit close to home. And a lot of the conversations that had been happening previously around technology were somehow, I think that the red flag had been raised
over and
over again.
Yeah.
But somehow it wasn't getting through.
Yeah.
And all of the glamour of Silicon Valley, all of the money, the unicorns, it was just a very, bright and shiny time, right? And I think that story didn't somehow get told. And then, boom.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you mean the tool that I use every day, 10 times a day? That's the thing that's actually causing a lot of problems in my life.
Right.
And, there have always been, I think, throughout, Silicon Valley's history, these kind of Theranos level kind of
frauds,
disasters,
craters,
right? Like terrible, like really bad kind of situations like this. But this was the first time it was like, here, like it was home.
Right.
It was really home.
Because you
and
care
not
about
kind
community.
Of like abstract.
You blame this on Zuckerberg. He seems to be the bad actor in all this.
The bad actor. Well,
I think he's amoral. What do you think?
Listen, like a lot of the things that we have built over the course of our careers in social media, right? We didn't call it social media. We called it online community.
Yeah, we had a sense that this was like a community.
And we had a sense that you participated, you had conversations with other people. Like you were all in it together, right?
Reputation.
You had to negotiate. We had a reputation. You had to negotiate with other people. You were your whole self online. You weren't just kind of giving your highlights reels. It was a different era, I think. And frankly, at that time, people were more whole. And then all of a sudden, Flickr had one. If you go back to I have like a Flickr 2004 post of the original design where it was the first reverse cron.
It was a feed.
Feed. It was called a feed. I never called it a feed.
And you had likes. So you had hearts. So what did you have?
There were
comments for sure.
Yeah, there were definitely comments and
tagging.
And it would let you know when your photo had been tagged or people in your network had actually uploaded photos or interacted with your things in some way. Yeah. And what happened on Facebook, and I think this was very significant, is that they made it so that what got the most attention rose to the top.
Right.
Right?
The algorithm.
That, and everybody, when that algorithm started working, everyone was like, red flag, right?
Yeah.
Because what gets the most attention is not necessarily the thing that you want to see, right?
Car crashes get a ton of attention. Bar fights get a lot of attention.
Bar fights, naked people.
Naked people on meth on Turk Street get a lot of attention in San Francisco.
Attention, right?
Yeah.
And
doesn't mean you want to do it.
It doesn't mean that you should do that.
Yes.
And the other thing too is that then after making it possible for creating attention garnering content to rise to the top, then you could buy your way there, which meant that advertisers obviously could buy their way into your community.
Link baiting, right?
You couldn't even reach your own community.
Right.
Right. The people
they disintermediated you from your followers.
And then made it so that you had to pay to get in front of them. Right. All the people that you were following you out of, connections with you.
Yeah.
And, not only advertisers, but potentially foreign governments.
Right.
Right.
The Ruskies.
So I just think that it's it was just
all of what you're talking about,
progression.
Everything you describe is Zuckerberg's innovation,
so to speak.
Well, but, he's a disaster. He doesn't care.
I'm not sure that you would call those innovations, because anybody who kind of just spent 10 minutes thinking about that would ask themselves the question, should this exist?
Yes.
And frankly, go through
You met Zuckerberg?
Yeah. In
what do you think of him interpersonally when you first met him?
Interpersonally,
yeah.
I actually met, I met Mark at Il Fornaio in
the generic Italian chain
restaurant in Palo Alto when he first moved Facebook out from Boston.
Right. Sean Parker was running him around town.
And Sean Parker was running him around town. And I was lunching with him on behalf of Yahoo Corp Dev.
Oh.
Right?
Yahoo
because
Corp Dev.
my company had been acquired by Yahoo, and they were very interested in acquiring
the Facebook.
Right.
So they
as
sent
it was
you
known at the time. So they said, who has, street cred,
founder
as an
DNA,
entrepreneur, and founder DNA, who can go kind of suss this guy out and see if, there's any
Did he make
chance.
eye contact with you at any point during the lunch?
This is so back in the fog of history that I don't remember, but I did have, he gave me a I'm CEO bitch.
Wow.
Business card. Famously, that's what it said on his business card, which I have somewhere.
Yeah.
But
with absolutely no idea of how a woman might take that.
Right. Thinking, so there's that. And then the second time that I met with him, and it was funny because right before that, I was going to Davos, and he and I were on a panel together.
Oh boy.
At Davos. And so that was, I think, the second time that I spent time with him. And then
were they public by then, or they're just emerging?
No, I think it was still emerging.
Yeah.
It was still emerging. So
I met him at the TED conference at Monterey,
right.
at a dinner, John Brockman's billionaire dinner thing.
That crazy dinner.
Neither
of us were rich enough to be there.
No, but Brockman's my agent, and he collects the young, interesting kids. So he had Larry Sergey, Ev Williams, me, and this kid Zuckerberg at the kiddie table. I kid you not.
I think I was there too.
You were there too, I think.
I was there.
Was Sergey blowing fireballs with 151 rum?
Yes.
You remember? Okay, so that was that. Lori Park and Sergey.
It was Lori Park.
They were blowing fireballs.
Right.
And Brockman comes up to me. He's like, "Can you talk to your friend Sergey? He's going to light this place on fire." He was acting like a child. I got Marvin Minsky over here and Ted Leonsis and Bill Gates, and he's going to start a goddamn fire. So I had to go talk to Sergey.
They're going to lose their eyebrows.
I'm like, Sergey, you're not at Stanford. This isn't a frat party. These are important people. Steve Case was there.
Not for long.
Exactly.
In his book.
Everybody looked at themselves because Zuckerberg didn't say anything. And it was a very funny, weird situation because he gets up and leaves.
Right.
And we all just look at each other. I was like, that dude's weird.
Who was that guy?
He was just weird because he wouldn't talk.
In that crowd, that guy was not weird.
Well, that's true. It's a fair point because there's a lot of introverts and Asperger-like people at that table. Right. I was the only non-Aspie person.
I know. You and I are the extroverts.
Exactly.
At that party.
But it is when you think about everything you describe.
Right.
Zuckerberg's philosophy, aside from he's CEO bitch, is that move fast and break things, and engagement, and at all costs. It feels like that engagement at all costs is the opposite of building a community.
It is the opposite of a community.
Yeah.
Right? Because you kind of, in a community, you're there because you want to be there, right? You're there because you like the people that are there. You're there in order to connect with people, right? And in communities, there's some way of, relating to people that are different from you. People are part of a community, right?
Yeah.
That, I come from my family's, my mother's Filipino. And so I come from a culture in which you throw a party and the grandmas are there, the babies are there, the teenagers are there, everyone's there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like a very inclusive, all embracing,
not manipulated,
kind of everybody sort of is who they are all day long, Yeah. It's kind of it's a very different,
I thought the most dark thing was like, we're going to see what psychological impact we have on people. Like, and they were like promoting, like with one group of people, like deaths and dark kind of stuff. And with another group of people, they're promoting like bar mitzvahs and baby announcements. They were doing all that.
I remember that. Yeah. And then it was actually some of the basically what the researchers were doing was trying to figure out if they could change people's mood.
Right.
Positively and negatively.
Well, of course you can.
Of course you can.
Yeah, if I put you in a movie theater like Clockwork Orange and make you watch horrible stuff with your eyes pinned open, it's going to be...
Clockwork Orange. Right.
It is a Clockwork Orange.
Obviously, there's this like multi-billion-dollar industry called advertising, which is basically based on that premise. We can make you hungry for a Carl Jr. burger right now.
Sounds good. Should have cheese on it.
Cheese.
All right, when we get back, I want to know what you think of Instagram.
Right.
And then we're going to play a new game.
What? Called?
Should this exist? I didn't know exactly where you were going, but we're going to hear more about the podcast, and I am going to give you a list of things.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me if it should exist or not.
See?
The opposite of what you probably want to do in your podcast, which is be considered. I'm going to try to pin you down.
Right. It's going to be yes or no, not like a thoughtful
No, it's not NPR here. This is Howard Stern when we get back on This Week in Startups. If you're a startup and you're just getting started, or you're a bigger startup and you're scaling, it's time for you to use the easiest cloud platform out there to deploy, manage, and scale applications. And it's one that removes all the infrastructure friction from your life. 150,000 businesses, including the world's fastest startups, are using this specific service. And that service is DigitalOcean, of course. And I'm going to give you $100 from DigitalOcean right now. Go to do.co/twist. That's right, $100 credit. I had Mitch Weiner called into This Week in Startups back in 2010. That's 9 years ago. And he was working in marketing. He's like, hey, J-Cal, what should I do with my life? I was like, you should go to like Techstars or Y Combinator or one of these places and find the hottest startup and join them and get that sweet, sweet equity. You know what? He joined DigitalOcean, came back on the podcast in 2014 after they raised $37 million from Andreessen Horowitz, one of the top firms in the Silicon Valley. They have straightforward billing. It's flat pricing. You're never going to get a surprise. You always know what you're going to pay, and that's super important. And here's a customer testimonial from Content Ignite. Since moving to DigitalOcean, our startup is ultimately more capable than what we had before the migration. Downtime has become a rarity, and our hosting costs have decreased by more than 90%. What? That's right, a 90% decrease in those hosting costs. And when you save that money, I encourage you, whenever you save money, this is what I do. If we save like $500 on something a month, people are like, we're saving 500 or even 100. Times it by 40 months, because that's probably how long you're going to keep these things. So if you're saving $100 a month times 40 months, this can add up quickly. Or if it's $500 or $1,000, we're talking about serious cash back in your pocket. Okay, do.co/twist. Get that $100 credit. And thanks again to DigitalOcean for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Okay, we're having a rip-roaring good time with Caterina Fake, going over the history of the internet, what went wrong, what went right. You know, I wanted to ask you also about your thoughts on Instagram.
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 Right.
What do you think of this? It's become quite a phenomenon.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's getting big with the kids. What do you think of that, Instagram?
Well, it's funny because I have a strong opinion of it.
Yeah.
Because we were unable to build the mobile app for Flickr.
Why?
Which is crazy.
Because Yahoo people were incompetent?
Because of office politics. Because one guy at Yahoo owned mobile.
Oh.
And so we were unable to build the product. And of course, we're product people.
Yeah, you would have whipped that out in a weekend.
We did. Yeah. And in fact, it was a beautiful app, and it was shunted aside. Oh. And then a new app that was actually built by the mobile department came out. Yeah. And you know what's the crazy thing about the first version of that app?
What?
There was no way to sign up.
Yeah, no.
It was crazy.
You sign up on the web.
It was super crazy. Anyway, so this left a wide open field for, because, Flickr was, was ascendant, right? It was
everything.
It was everything. It was kind of, back in, circa 2008.
Technorati.
It was tremendous.
Flickr, delicious. And blogs.
Right. And so, but here's the thing that I think is also interesting about Instagram, because in the very early days, I actually I'm a big believer in the genesis story of how startups come to be, right? As we kind of already discovered with Blue Bottle Coffee, because how something starts and who starts it and the people that start it, we talk a lot about this on Should This Exist, is how it will become. I call this the Abraham.
Yeah.
And I call this in the Bible, it's like Abraham begat so-and-so, and it goes on forever. And the character and the personality and the values of the people that start that company, Mark Zuckerberg,
right?
Sergey Brin, right? Jason Calacanis, Caterina Fake, whoever it is that starts that company is kind of how it's modeled. It's how it becomes, right? You can see how, Steve Jobs and Apple, he left.
Right.
And then
disaster.
It was like
vomit. Product vomit.
It was,
they started licensing the operating system
it was just,
to other people. They made 20 different versions of the same Mac.
Right.
With
and
5
then
different partners.
He came back.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, it came back to what it had originally intended to become. And so what was interesting, I thought, the first thing I noticed about Instagram was that it was about filters. Right? Remember this? Yeah. It was like entirely about the thing that still has all the filters. And I'm not sure that that's really the foregrounded feature, but that was the foregrounded feature.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself when I saw that there's a lot of airbrushy, beautiful, right?
Yeah. We all look better.
We all looked better, right?
I black and white that now. Right? I look good in black and white. Color, not so much.
Sophisticated.
Yeah, I go black and white.
Yeah, black and white.
When you get older, I suggest when you hit 50, you go black and white. I'm 48. But you go 50, I suggest go black and white.
You go totally like 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a filter for you.
There's a filter for me somewhere in there? Sausalito? Something?
Sausalito? Is that the name of one?
Tokyo is the one I like. Tokyo is the black and white one. It makes everything look like a Kurosawa film, my favorite director.
Okay.
But you're right. But anyway, to your point about filters.
So, right. I'm going for Ozu more with it. Anyway,
Ozu,
but
a little tangy.
Yeah. But
complex.
it struck me that this was the beginning of what I started to call social peacocking. Right? Like it's kind of like, the better version of you.
Yes.
Right? I think that Flickr had, the average version of you, the daily version of you. It was kind of you. It was kind of you in your wholeness.
Yeah. It was your camera roll.
Right? It was kind of you as, it's just, as you lived, and you didn't have to, you weren't showing off.
No.
And it wasn't like all the cool people that you were hanging out with and all the beautiful beaches that you were going to and your follower count and your likes and all that kind of thing, which was because it was social media. It was social media. It had filters. And I think that it's interesting because you and I are old enough at this point to be able to distinguish between, a pre-internet world. We actually lived in that ancient time. Now ancient time, which, and
we're like the only generation that remembers. The Gen Xers remember half their life with like dial-up modems or nothing.
Right.
Or even pre-computer, right?
Or nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it gives us an interesting perspective on things that, Instagram struck me. I was like, wow, it's true that this is the first generation that has grown up with most of the imagery that they've seen in their lives has been advertising. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And that like changes you. And,
Yeah. I fear for these kids. Like their whole lives are like fronting and this like FOMO, and
it's so disappointing.
Yeah.
Right? Like your real life.
And they all want to sell out. That's the other thing that's weird. Like when we were growing up, like the Rolling Stones were like, yeah, you can't use our songs in advertising.
We're sounding like old folks here, but I mean, it's true. Like I actually see it's really, Rolling Stone, like that's even before us.
No, I know, but rock stars were not like, if you told the Clash, like, hey, would you do a Pepsi commercial? They'd be like, what? We'll murder and beat up the CEO of Pepsi, but we're not doing a Pepsi commercial. You want us to beat the CEO?
Right.
We'll beat each other up with bottles of Pepsi.
Right. Well, I mean, all of kind of rebellion was appropriated by, what was used to be called Madison Avenue. But
it's very interesting. I heard this new trend. This is super disturbing. You're going to love it. Some of these Insta models or Insta personalities are now, because they covet getting advertisers and sponsors to do, this product placement, they're doing product placement and not getting paid for it. So they see what Kim Kardashian is doing. And if she's doing like some diet-tea,
right,
they do diet-tea and put a link in the bio to the diet-tea and put the hashtag as if they're getting paid.
Right.
Which would be like me dressing up like a cop and walking around pretending I'm a cop. Like,
right, because then it seems as
but I'm not getting paid to be
already promoting
they
it.
made it.
Right. And it's funny because I like my friends to, I mean, it's like, whatever. This was like the Truman Show. I mean, goes back to the Truman Show.
It's all the
Whereas
Truman Show.
What are you talking about? Why are you raising this cup?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to? Remember that?
That was a great scene when he's
who is it that you're talking to?
I just love sharing this moment of tea with you, Caterina. That Tazo. Tazlicious.
Tazlicious.
It's like,
right?
who are you talking to?
Who are you talking to, right? You kind of.
I just love when he takes the ship out and it hits the wall.
What? Yes.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
And he's like, that's the end? It's just
that's
a wall?
That's it.
Is that what we all do in our lives? We just, like, when we die,
right?
We just take that ship and bang on a wall and then we open up and we're on a set.
We're on a set. We're on a set. We're on a set. We're definitely.
It's a set on a set.
We're a set. We're on the set. It's a set within a set. Sets within sets.
It's sets within sets. All right, here we go. Should this exist?
Oh no! See,
here we go.
Let's just back up right here. Okay.
All right.
Because I want to talk about the premise of the show, which is not for me, Caterina Fake, to decide if something should or should not exist, right? It's to raise the question and to start the conversation. That's really what it's about.
I just want you to tell me what to do.
He's saying like, this is not the NPR. This is not the NPR version.
I can do the NPR version. I can do that too. Hey, everybody. You're listening to KCRW, the sound of Santa Monica, 92.3. My guest today, Caterina Fake. Caterina.
Are you just like the sanctimonious sound?
Yeah.
So just turn on your sanctimony filter and
absolutely.
That's how it goes.
Okay. Let's take our first one.
If you talk to me in that voice.
Okay, stop. It's disturbing.
I'm just not going to, I'm going to have to leave.
I can do my zany Z100 radio voice too.
Oh.
Everybody loves that.
No one here in the studio is interested in that.
Nobody?
I have never heard of it.
Okay, everybody.
But I trust them.
Okay.
I trust them.
Okay. Robot soldiers. Should they exist?
So let's talk about that for a second.
Robotic
soldiers. Well, kind of, don't they already exist?
Robots, but not with guns. So let's refine it.
Mm-hmm.
Robotic soldiers with guns.
With guns.
Right. Should it exist?
Gosh, that's a tough one because how many Star Wars movies have you seen that have robotic soldiers? There actually are lots of robotic soldiers already kind of in the public consciousness.
Right.
Right. And I guess it depends, right? Like if it's going to save lives, it's probably save lives. But then again, they're robotic soldiers with guns. So they're not in the business of themselves saving lives.
Right.
See, these are tough ones.
Okay.
I'm better at raising than answering questions in this because I think that these things are actually quite nuanced.
It is.
In on behalf of which government?
And in what zone? Under what circumstances?
Right,
what
under
context?
what circumstances and what context and what zones, right?
Right.
And if you create a robotic soldier, presumably you're doing it for a particular government or for, you have some kind of, or you're just an arms dealer and you'll just, whoever's got money, you'll sell it to them.
Right.
So
let's refine it.
The question is,
yeah,
right? There's like a lot of layers to that.
Right. So let's say it's with the country that has God on its side, which is America.
Which is America.
America.
If it's America. We're Americans.
We're Americans.
We're Americans.
So on the context of if we had a robotic soldier on Turk Street.
Right. Probably no.
No.
Absolutely not. But if it's in the field of war.
Afghanistan after 9/11 and they're terrorists, Al-Qaeda.
Right.
Feels a little bit better.
Appropriate place.
Yeah.
Appropriate place.
Probably.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So under the right circumstances, yes.
Right. Because we have drones.
We have drones.
And as long as we don't fly them over our people, we seem to have accepted them. Drones would be robotic, armed soldiers.
Sure. That's kind of what they already are.
They kind of already are.
They already are that. Right.
We're kind of already there. So I guess we already accept that one. Okay.
Right.
CRISPR.
Right.
Manipulated babies.
See, this one goes right to the heart.
CRISPR.
Right.
Manipulated babies that remove the Parkinson's gene.
Right. So exactly. Right. So we actually have a CRISPR episode coming up in the show. So,
let's unpack it.
Coming soon.
Yes.
Coming soon. We actually have, there's so much interesting stuff and so much world-changing stuff going on right now with.
Well, what world do you want to live in with CRISPR?
AI, CRISPR, all of this. So with CRISPR, I think if you're doing things like removing disease, right? Parkinson's is a great example. Any other kind of genetically hereditary disease that you could manipulate. Yes.
Easy.
Thumbs up. That one actually.
That's a layup.
I don't think that's a controversial question. Okay. It becomes much more controversial if you're saying that, I want my baby to be yay high and I want them to, you know what I'm saying? Like
I was going to go for height next. Because I've always wanted to dunk and I'm 5'8.5" on a good day.
Right.
Would it be outrageous to want your child to be over 6 foot?
Right. And there you start getting.
Well, what about for you? If you could pick.
For me?
Yeah.
For me, I think I would decline to pick.
Decline to pick.
I would decline to pick.
Okay.
Because that's eugenesis.
Eugenistic?
Yes.
Is that a word?
Yes, that's eugenics.
Eugenistic.
Right? I mean, people can argue that.
Okay.
People can argue that all of CRISPR is eugenics.
Is eugenics necessarily?
Well, eugenics is, really, these people are better than those people.
Right.
Tall people are better than short people.
Right.
Right.
True.
And
True. I agree.
Are you saying this
I'm joking.
Neither of us are tall people.
I know.
Neither. You're talking to kind of, another
average height people.
Like,
What if
non-tall person?
The Chinese make everybody have on their side 10 IQ points more, 10% more brain mass. Would you, with your kids or your kids' kids, your grandkids, if you ever have any, God willing, would you be okay with your kids optimizing?
Right.
For 10% more brain capacity.
Right.
That can't be
if it was my kid. But, I think that we have to decide as people, are we going to stay as, I kind of think in a post-CRISPR world, are there going to be artisanal people?
Pure.
Right? Heirloom.
It is heirloom more than artisanal because artisanal in this might be
handcrafted. But heirloom. So if we're going to be, so are you going to choose to be an heirloom or an adaptive person? Right?
100% adaptive.
Like you're on the side of CRISPR.
I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate because I know that you're going to take the heirloom side.
I think I'm going to take heirloom side. Well, look at my products.
Exactly.
Flickr, Etsy, they're very human kind of,
What if?
On the side of the human.
If we knew
that
giving everybody 10 or 20% more brain power would lead to
peace.
Okay, perfect. Peace or curing of cancer. I was going to go for, but even better, peace.
Right, peace.
World peace.
World peace.
Would that happen? Would you be in favor?
I'd be on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we knew that, but
But it's probably going to just create a bunch of Lex Luthors. Let's be honest. Human nature is such that once you get more brain powers, there's a certain element that will use those to commit crime.
Right.
We'll have super criminals.
Right.
Who are smarter than us.
And then it's an arms race, right? Because then, You're going to have to be smarter than the super criminals. So you're going to just boost your IQ by 10, 15, maybe 20 points.
The AI thing's been hashed to death.
Are we sick of it?
I don't know.
I mean, it's sick of it yet.
I'm not sick of it, but it's kind of like, okay, yeah, it could be a problem.
It could be a problem.
Where do you stand on it? Does it feel like it's getting even close to being a problem?
Well, it depends on what it is, right? It depends. Is it autonomous vehicles? Is it facial recognition software? Is it, I mean, these are a lot of the things that we're actually talking about on the show.
Yes.
And a lot of the way the show works basically is an entrepreneur who is building a very kind of new technology discusses it with us.
Right.
And then we bring in commentators and talk about it with those people. And then we have a workshop with the entrepreneur about all of the interesting angles. And
so it's not just hypothetical like we're doing here. This is not just
it's actual. It's actually in practice.
I have the perfect company for this.
Okay. I can't wait to hear.
And I'll tell you when we get back on This Week in Startups, huh? Let me take a moment to tell you about HubSpot, which we use and love here at Launch. You're probably guessing there's a theme here. We only invite people to be partners on this program if we love their product or one of our portfolio companies loves it, because we don't want to ever tell you to consider using these products if we don't stand behind them. And HubSpot is one we stand behind because I had the founder on the podcast in year one. And HubSpot has had an amazing run as a startup, and they have a new project. Actually, this has been around for a couple of years now that I think about it. HubSpot for Startups. And this program will help startups grow faster and scale. It's super cool, and it includes a ridiculously steep discount on the HubSpot growth platform. And all of y'all want to grow. Up to 90% off startup education and programming and access to HubSpot's integrations at a startup-friendly cost. Thousands of startups are already using HubSpot sales, marketing, and services software and learning from mentors associated with HubSpot for startups. I want you to go to HubSpot.com/startups/twist. That URL again, HubSpot.com/startups/twist. And if you use that link, you will be entered into a free ticket to HubSpot's 24,000 person live event Inbound, which is September 3rd to 6th. This year, 2019, in Boston. Go to Boston. It's a lovely time to be in Boston. September 3rd to 6th, 2019, in Boston. I may be there. HubSpot's 24,000 person live event, Inbound. You're going to get that entered into that free drawing. And they do a great job. We use it here for CRM. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's robust, it's HubSpot. And go get that HubSpot for startups at HubSpot.com/startups/twist. Hey everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startup. Really excited to have Caterina Fake here. Why haven't you been on the podcast before? You just disappeared for a couple of years. You had your head down and you were working?
Well, I don't know. I was working and, you know, whatever.
Not doing a lot of press.
I'm around.
Yeah, you're around.
I'm here. Right.
What do you spend? What's your average day like? What do you do every day?
Well, I wake up at 2 a.m. and then I'm awake.
Oh, don't tell me you're one of those people.
I'm one of these people. I am. You know, you probably just listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast.
I had listened to part of it, yes.
I just did. And he, you know, it's kind of this biphasic sleep thing, but
But you go back to bed.
I go back to bed.
At 5?
Around 5. So 2 to 5.
And then you sleep for 3 or 4 hours?
Roughly 2 to 5. Sometimes it's 3 to 6 or something.
And you just sleep for another 2 or 3 hours?
Right. And then I sleep for another 2 or 3
that
hours.
Works.
And that's great, actually. Yeah. And then super productive in the middle of the night and no computer, right? That's the one rule that I have is that I don't go on the computer because immediately, you know.
It's too stimulating.
It's, you know, it just never ends.
The internet's gotten big.
You know, I've heard.
Remember the early days of the internet, Yahoo would have I try to explain this to people. Yahoo had a web page that was new and it was reverse cron.
Right.
So you could see Tuesdays websites and there'd be 5.
Right.
Wednesdays would be 6, and you just look and you'd have clicked the link, so they were dark.
Do you remember that there was like a gray background?
Yeah, of course, gray background with the etched.
Who is it that made it a white background?
I have no idea. You did?
Yeah.
What?
Because I worked at Organic Online as one.
Oh, you worked at Organic?
One of the very first web designers.
I didn't know that.
Circa 1996.
Wow.
Yeah. And designed, if you go back, there's an amazing website that's got 1996 websites. It's still out there somewhere. Internet 1996.
Incredible.
And the McDonald's site.
I remember.
That I had designed.
Wow.
Is still on there.
Wow.
And all this other stuff.
Did you do the Zima ad? That was the first hot
I did
wired
not
ad.
do that.
Zima. Have you ever tasted Zima? That's a more important question.
No, what is that?
Zima
I don't even know what it
is
is.
a malt liquor
Okay.
that was clear, and it was like an alternative beverage. If you didn't want wine, and if you didn't want beer, you would have Zima. Zima, Z-I-M-A.
That sounds terrible. Like,
It sounds like the
would you want?
Zima.
Why
Actually,
would you
I guess
want
technically it's a
clear?
beer.
But it's clear, and so it doesn't read
was-
as a beer.
It was clear. Yeah.
Right.
Here,
So
pull
it's
up my
like-
screen
it's
for
like
a
the
second. I'll show you
carbo.
Zima.
It's the carbo,
It's going
right?
to blow your mind. This is Zima. That's Zima. But anyways, the reason this is very important is Zima
Wow, now that I see it, I recognize it.
was the first banner ad ever created. My understanding is hot-wired
Mm-hmm.
because you worked at Organic, which is
Which
in the building.
which spun out of Hotwired.
Hot-wired.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was the same building.
Yes.
Whatever that big warehouse building is.
503rd.
503rd
Yep.
is this big warehouse building. It still has the Organic logo on the side.
Mhm.
Organic was a web agency. You worked there
Yeah. Yeah.
doing
yeah.
the HTML.
I was the second designer
Ah.
there.
And that was one of the first, or the first web design company. They
Yeah.
they
it's a
actually had
standalone
servers.
web design shop. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But Zima was the first ad on Hotwire.
Yeah. And before that, I did CD-ROM design.
Voyager,
No, but I did educational CD-ROMs.
edutainment.
Edutainment. I guess it was actually more educational,
Educational.
than
People forget this. Before the internet,
right.
CD-ROMs came out,
Right.
and this was a revolution. Why?
right.
Why was this such a revolution at the time?
Because it was, it was manipulable, right? You could push buttons, you could make things happen, video would pop up.
Mm.
And I was working on one on the Lincoln Douglas debates.
Mm.
So
Wow. So
So
they were really link baiting,
high school civics.
High school civics, right? It was like
Yeah.
a thing. Like you'd buy a CD because computers started coming with CD-ROMs. You buy a CD-ROM, you put it in, and it would
Pop it
entertain
in, and they would have
audio,
educational programs,
Video,
videos. Yeah,
games.
it was amazing. It was
text.
it was amazing.
It was multimedia,
Right.
multiple
so then the
medias.
web came along, which was,
Yeah.
gray backgrounds and text.
Yeah.
And compared to a CD-ROM was not that interesting. But
Right.
it didn't take long for the
No, 2-3 years.
Yeah, for the internet to catch up. More than that.
Yeah, I'd say
Because
like
I remember the animated GIF meeting that we had.
that was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
The Bouncing Blue Ball by Razorfish. The blue dot.
Yes.
Razorfish made a blue dot bounce around your screen.
Right.
And people were like, whoa. I'm looking at a web page and there's a blue dot moving. And you're like, but your
Mhm.
TV is right over there. And your computer's just an underpowered
Right,
TV.
right,
It's
right,
not
right.
really that much different.
I don't
I don't
know.
think-
You could see it was, you could sense how important it was, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It was super clear that the gatekeepers were not going to hold information back. That to me, because I know that people started putting up like,
There were no gatekeepers.
there were no gatekeepers, but
Right.
people started putting up like drug recipes, bomb recipes, all these like manuals, porn, whatever. Things got to put up there that you just normally wouldn't have access to easily. You'd have to go to some weird bookshop to get the anarchist cookbook or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or bootlegs, right? The Grateful Dead bootleg started
Right,
going on. That
right.
kind of stuff was like, oh, wow, I can get that anywhere in the world without asking permission.
Immediately.
And give it to people without asking
Right.
for permission. What?
Or you could find these people, if you were like
Yeah.
me, right? And you lived in a, football and cheerleader town
Yeah.
in New Jersey, you could find interesting people.
I pinned you for a Jersey girl.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
I'm from Pittsburgh.
You must have been immersing. You must have stuck out with like a sore thumb in
right.
Jersey.
Morris County, New Jersey.
Morris County?
Yeah.
I used to summer in Ridgewood, New Jersey,
See?
where Graydon Pool was. There's
Yes.
a big lake there.
Yes. And that's where my dad grew up. I went to
Ah.
high school.
In Ridgewood?
Ridgewood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was your dad a doctor or something? A lawyer?
Insurance
Banker.
executive.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, that's what all those people were like, professionals who left Manhattan or Brooklyn. They went to
Right.
Ridgewood to have a home.
Right.
They'd moved
right.
up in the world.
Beautiful. Maple leaves. and-
Gorgeous.
yeah.
Tree-lined, very bucolic, as they say in the
Yes.
business.
Yes. Yes.
All right, I had done a teaser, and now we went off this crazy
I
tangent.
know.
I don't even remember my own teaser.
Because you told me that you were going to tell me who my next guest
I have the perfect
on
category.
Should This Exist should be.
Okay.
Right.
I've gotten a lot of bunk. Not a lot, I should say.
Right.
Very minimum. But some vocal people are like, oh my God, your investment in Cafe X is going to get rid of baristas.
right.
You invested in Blue Bottle, I invested in Cafe X. It's a robot
Right.
that can make coffee.
Right.
Coffee tastes delicious. It's right up there with Blue Bottle. They use the same beans like Ritual or whatever. But I've had this argument with people like, do we really need, should people be baristas for their lives if they don't want to? Because what percentage of baristas actually want that job?
Do they want to be poets?
Right.
Psychologists?
Like you. Yeah, other things.
Right.
So when I heard the idea for it, I was like, oh, well, you can get rid of all those monotonous, crazy jobs like being a phone operator.
Right.
And then we could just take the money we save and put a musician next to it playing piano or guitar.
Right.
And the barista could just play guitar and the robot would make the coffee. But there's a pizza robot, a hamburger robot.
You know what else? You know what else I invested in is Sudden Coffee, which is instant gourmet coffee.
What?
Right?
Oh, I get you. Like you,
right?
It's like
because you don't need
what's it called? Sudden
coffee.
I like that.
Yeah.
You don't need any preparation.
I'll bring you some next time.
I'll order it.
Now that I'm going to be a regular on this show.
No, yeah, exactly. What do you think of the automation jobs going away? Because we're sitting here with record low unemployment. Everybody, and the largest, not on a percentage basis, but on a actual number, the largest number of Americans working. We're supposed to have like this collapsing of jobs. And we keep hearing that over and over again, and it hasn't happened. Is it gonna happen?
How is that? I mean, maybe it never happens. Let's hope, because there's a lot of people looking for work. Is unemployment that high currently?
It's very low.
It's very low.
It's at an all-time low.
All-time low.
If you want to work right now, you can work.
Right.
There's nobody in this country, except maybe if you've put yourself in a certain geo that is far away, but there's nobody within 50 miles of a city who cannot work. They may not like the job, but there's work available.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is also that those are not great jobs, like you're saying, right? Factory jobs, barista jobs,
Eliminating monotonous, grueling work is virtuous or not virtuous?
Or not virtuous, right? Because
well, what is it? Tell me.
I don't know, because I had all of these jobs, right? I waited tables. I was a receptionist. I even worked in a dive shop in Arkansas as a clerk.
Wow.
Behind the counter. And these jobs, actually, what I liked about those jobs is that I was there and I was doing my job and they owned my time, right? Yeah. And I had to be there, but they didn't own my mind.
Right.
Yeah,
that receptionist writing her novel behind the thing.
That's what I was doing.
Code.
I was writing a novel. I was writing
Were you
poetry.
really?
I was literally writing a novel.
Wow.
I wrote a novel when I was about 19 while I was sitting as a receptionist in New York City at Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz.
You worked at Wachtell?
I did.
Wow. I was installing. Wait, what year was that? 90?
Yeah, that was like I had left college and was working as a receptionist there and writing a novel.
That's hilarious. I was under the desks at Cahill Gordon and Sherman Sterling and all these other law firms putting in Ethernet cards and running cables so they could have document management. Was this so wait, you were born in 1970? 70?
Yeah.
You were born in 70? Me too. What month?
July.
November. Oh, you're older than me. But we were both in New York at the same exact time. We never ran into each other. That's hilarious. And I started a magazine called Cyber Surfer about CD-ROMs, a zine, in 1993. So right as you were going to work in CD-ROMs, I was covering them.
Right.
And the company I was covering was Voyager and Blender. I don't know if you remember those two. Voyager, you have to remember.
Voyager, I remember Voyager.
Yeah, they were doing like the Hard Day's Night CD-ROM. And then you remember Mist.
Oh, yeah.
Mist was like the big one that broke out in 93 or something that like sort of defined. That. But anyway, I think the people who are getting rid of jobs is a really interesting one.
Right. But like literally,
maybe it's not controversial.
Those kinds of jobs, you go to work and then you're done. Not like our jobs. Our jobs are like, right? We're thinking about it
constantly,
all the time, and
churning off is so hard.
There's actually great freedom in jobs where you come, you do your job, and then you go.
Right.
There's great freedom to that.
There are people who are working as lawyers and accountants or whatever in New York, and then they go upstate and they chop wood on the weekends.
Right.
And 100 years ago, they were chopping wood during the week. And getting paid for it as the job.
Right.
But they're literally going and chopping wood. I see like our contemporaries from that era.
Right.
I see like the founder of Foursquare like chopping wood on the weekends.
Right.
To clear his mind.
So I honestly think that those jobs should not be kind of thought of as necessarily like bad jobs that should be eliminated, because there's something very gratifying about them. I remember, my friend said that his mom, this was years ago, was addicted to Farmville. And so she's sitting there picking apples from a tree while literally outside her window, a guy is
picking apples from a tree. Mark Pincus. And the crazy part was she was taking the money she was making from her apple orchard and giving it to Zynga to buy more seeds to plant virtual apples.
Right.
I mean,
and there's honestly, I have a garden. There is so much joy in that.
There is.
There is so much joy in that, right?
The simulation is eating itself right now. We are this is definitely a simulation.
Right.
If we're on tablets farming, if farmers are on tablets farming while people are farming outside their window, something is not right. This is some sadistic 12-year-old's simulation on another planet in another dimension.
Sets within sets.
It's sets within sets within sets. What do you think about this anti-billionaire rhetoric that's going on?
Sure.
The New York Times story and AOC.
Right.
Stopping Amazon from creating jobs or saving the city from Amazon. What do you think about this anti-billionaire thing? Are you more like a socialist or are you a capitalist? Because you spent your career as a capitalist and you're doing venture capital.
I'm a venture capitalist.
Right. So you believe...
I think that we should be clear on that. But I do think that there is as I said, the character of those billionaires matters.
Right.
Right. And who is it that becomes rich and what do they do with their power? Because it grants you a tremendous amount of power.
Yeah.
And you can make decisions affecting people's lives.
Yeah.
And people that you don't know and have never met and never will meet. And that's an incredible responsibility, right? Yeah. So who are the good billionaires? I ask you.
Well, these are white guys. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's just a bunch of white dudes.
It's a bunch of white guys.
It's a bunch of white guys.
Right? So
I'm personally feeling a little bit of heat here. I mean, I'm not close there. I got to get 2 more zeros, but
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, honestly, it's a question. It's a question of who is the billionaire.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I was having a conversation with somebody recently and they were saying but the good billionaires will do this. And I was like, the good billionaires are who?
Yeah.
And,
they're all giving their money away. It seems like everybody's taking this giving pledge and giving away half.
Yeah.
I almost feel like the polarization of wealth has become a giant hack because you and I know many people who've gotten rich, like seriously rich. We did okay for ourselves, but we know people who are in the stratosphere in this random lottery ticket system we have here in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And they get weird. You've seen this? Like billionaires get super weird.
It gets weird.
And then they get anxiety. They go to therapy. They feel guilt. And then where do they all wind up going? They wind up being hated for their wealth or they feel that way. And then they give it all away.
Right.
Like Bill Gates.
Right.
And Melinda. Like they made all this money. Everybody hated Bill Gates in the 90s?
Hated Bill Gates.
Why?
Right.
Because he was rich.
Right.
He was a bit of a jerk too, I guess.
And then became
now he's loved.
Philanthropist.
And this is what everybody's going to do.
Yeah. But, there's that book by Anand Giridharadas, that Winners Take All.
Sounds like a great book. I haven't read it.
Winners Take All. And it's basically about the sham that is, change the world philanthropy. Because, and I was at a reading that he had done, and it was with a bunch of people who ran nonprofits. And the nonprofits were all funded by Walmart, BlackRock.
Yeah.
These were their funders of all of these wonderful nonprofits that were doing really good work in the world. And there's this woman there who worked at Walmart, and she told this story about this woman who worked at Walmart, and her job was to take all of the produce that was about to expire and put it in a truck and drive it to the food bank, right?
Okay.
And they got kind of tax write-offs and lots of benefits, and it was a philanthropic effort on the part of Walmart. But then that woman went home after her job, picked up her kids, and then ate at the food bank because she wasn't being paid enough to be able to feed her family. So his point was that Walmart could do a whole lot more good by paying their employees more, by et cetera, all of the things that are actually happening within Walmart, who I believe is actually one of the biggest employers.
Yeah, I think it is the biggest.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So
I think that's a fair point. And it really is bizarre to me that like they had to drag Bezos kicking and screaming to, pay people $15 an hour. But I guess Walmart's paying 11, and then they were paying some ridiculously low rate at the Apple stores too. And then Apple's got $250 billion in cash.
mm-hmm.
They're violently profitable, like to a level that
violently profitable.
No, it's
right.
Right. It's caused massive angst inside of their company because they don't know what to do with this pile of cash.
Sure.
Should we buy Netflix? Should we not? Should we make stuff here? Should we build a $4 billion or $5 billion headquarters that looks like a spaceship or a donut? Like,
right.
They're finding things to throw the money at.
Should we sponsor a Central American country and pay all of their
Basically, they could.
Security? They could.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
But you're a capitalist. You believe in capitalism.
I do. And yet I also kind of feel as if I know a lot of people who would make better decisions within their companies. And honestly, this is a lot of the reason for this podcast.
Yeah.
Right? That we don't end up in those situations where benefits accrue to more people, where the unintended consequences of our decisions that we're making when we're starting all of this technology actually has positive effects. And you think through unintended consequences before they happen.
Right.
And, just do all of those thought experiments. Have conversations throughout the development of your products. Be thoughtful.
What do you think about Twitter?
Thoughtful.
That was like such a great place, and now it's so horrible. Like we all loved Twitter. You have your first name. I have my first name. It was like all of us had our first names, and it was super cool and fun and playful and delightful. Mm-hmm. What went wrong?
Well, it's very clear to those of us who were like community managers, right?
Yeah.
That they did not do a good job in administering the community, which is what we would have called it, administering the user base, kind of allowing, hate basically to proliferate on the platform.
Yeah.
And Heather Champ, who was the original community manager at Flickr, and it's a difficult job.
Yeah, but she was brilliant, right?
Brilliant. She's brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And that what you tolerate is what you are. So if you tolerate white supremacists, you're a white supremacist platform. If you if you tolerate sexism, you are a sexist platform, right? You are a platform for chauvinists and bigots. And I really do think that there has been a lot of who me. I am not responsible.
Yeah, it's a platform.
Right?
We're just a platform.
So we're just a platform.
Right.
And therefore are not responsible for what goes on in that platform. And I have always been, in my circle of, kind of social media, so-called, I would call it community builders, that had a very different perspective on that. And that I actually thought that the responsibility of the outcomes of your technology actually comes from within, and that it should be explicit, and you can't just graft on in year 10 a chief ethics officer and expect that will actually have an effect because it's too late.
Yeah.
And that it's very important to have that in your DNA and ask yourself constantly, should this exist? Should this exist? Should this exist? Like, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
Just throwing away democracy.
Just have an idea.
Yeah.
Have an idea about what that could potentially be.
Yeah.
Right? From the get-go and kind of from the very beginning.
But that was, if you were on Usenet or listservs, I guess in the back in the day, there was always like a list mom, which, was frequently a man, and it wasn't always, it was not, they called it list mom, but it wasn't gender specific. But the list mom would read the emails.
Sure.
And if somebody was getting a little wonky, they would put them on moderated, which meant like you could publish right to the list to 1,000 people on the email list. But if I had to put spam up there or commercial messages or been nasty, they would flag my account and check my emails before they went out.
Right.
It's kind of like you put you in a penalty box.
Penalty box, which is...
Or like they would just like look at your stuff. Like, I'm just going to check your stuff before it goes out, right?
Right, totally.
Just one quick check.
Mute, kick, ban.
Mute, kick, ban. Yeah.
And a lot of that has gone away. I mean, there still exists to some degree, but I think that proliferated for way too long.
Yeah.
And at the point where, we better hire a chief ethics officer, to that point. And I do think that's a Band-Aid. And honestly, that's a lot of what we're trying to do with this show, is that we've seen now what happens when, you can't course correct when you're that far.
No, I mean, how is Facebook ever going to, their mission was to explicitly get everybody on the platform. Well, if you got everybody on the platform and then you're going to tell them, oh, by the way, we're going to change the rules. If you're, a racist or, Klansman, you can't be on the platform. It's like, but I've been here for a decade. Like, all my Klansman friends are here. That's my Klansman accent. I've been working on it since Black Klansman came out. Did you see Spike Lee film?
I have not seen it.
That's worth seeing.
I haven't seen it.
It's so good. All right. Oh, zebras. We didn't talk about zebras.
We didn't talk about zebras.
What do you think about this zebra movement?
I love the zebra movement.
You love the zebra movement.
I love the zebra movement.
So you want startups
because here's what I think.
That can't be unicorns.
Right. Because here's the thing, right? We have created a model in venture and in the Valley. This is a very kind of homegrown model that we've perpetrated out here to great success and with tremendous, kind of upside for a handful of companies, right?
Yes.
And, everybody knows that for every unicorn, there's like 99 companies must die.
Yes.
Right? And
to feed the unicorn.
To feed the unicorn, right? Yes. And to provide unicorn feed. And this is a tragic loss because a lot of those companies have merit. A lot of those companies are ones that, frankly, didn't fit into this kind of rapid hypergrowth model.
Right.
They didn't blitz scale. They didn't, kind of metastasize into this other huge thing and therefore died. And so many beautiful, wonderful products and things that had great possibility and potential were just put to death.
Right.
Because the venture model did not support them. Right. And it seemed as if between going down to your local bank and getting venture capital, there was no middle ground.
There is no middle ground.
There is no middle ground. And you would go into a venture capitalist's office and you would say, I'm planning on building this company and we're planning on building it to this high.
Yeah.
Not this high, this high.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, that's nice.
It's a lifestyle business. That sounds like
a lifestyle business, right?
Yeah.
And like as if, right? As if there is only,
skyscrapers.
As if there was only, Travis Kalanick, or hanging out, smoking dope, and like going to surfing all day.
Yes,
and then doing your business on the side, right? As if there were not.
That's how I look at the world. Right? It's worked for my investment thesis so far.
Right?
Yes.
So what I like about this, and everybody knows, right, that most businesses in this country are started by women.
Sure.
Are those companies venture backed? No. Literally, women-founded companies are 2%, right?
It's a lot more now.
Still women founders.
I think it's a lot more
I
now.
believe that it's still just at 2%, and it has not gone up.
Oh, for venture or seed?
Venture.
Okay, yeah, venture probably.
Venture, because it also drops off on the higher end.
Right.
Right? And so in many ways, I'm a mom,
right.
I'm a woman, I'm like working in a male dominated industry in technology. Right.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of these women's businesses. I see so many women's businesses come through my inbox for Yes VC. Right. And I love that because if I, in 2004, when I was raising money for the company that eventually became Flickr, and there was somebody that looked like me, I would have run straight to her door. But you go up and down Sand Hill Road and it just wasn't.
No.
It just wasn't like
that. I mean, even back then it was all MBAs. These people had never worked in a startup.
Right.
It was pre, founders becoming VCs. It was weird people.
It was a
weird group.
When my prior firm, Founder Collective, we named it Founder Collective because it was actually different.
It was crazy.
It was like, wow.
There's founders running a VC firm. They let the inmates run the asylum.
Right. It was, that was 2009.
Wow.
when that was still a novelty.
10 years ago, yeah.
Right?
It's crazy. Founders Fund, Founder Collective.
Founder Collective. Like honestly, a lot of us named it Founder something.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Zebra movement, which I'd be interested to hear your objections to it, because I actually think that that entire new community of people with different businesses, with different agendas and different value systems, and will flourish under a different model.
All right. I'm going to give you the counterpoint.
Okay.
Here we go. I just heard every word.
Everybody, here's a
Okay. Listen.
Right.
I agree. There's a big
gap.
There's a big gap between a bank loan, which they don't give to anybody anyway.
Nobody gets a bank loan.
You only get a bank loan if you put your house up, or you've got a company that doesn't need it. Like Amazon can get a bond.
Did you know that I did that?
You put your house up?
No, I put a mortgage. I put a second mortgage on my apartment to support Flickr.
Maniac.
Yeah.
Wow. It worked out?
It worked. It worked out in the end.
It worked out in the end. They paid it back. That must have been some trying times before Yahoo cut the check.
But it was. I mean, we were eating it was like cup noodles, like for dinner.
That's
again.
Yeah. So between those two, like violent funding to go fast jet fuel and, whatever, bank loans. The bank loans don't exist anymore. We now see equity crowdfunding, and we see the cost of capital the cost of starting these companies so low that you can bootstrap.
Sure.
So as a VC, and a VC, I'm like a seed angel kind of person, but
right.
I'm a solo practitioner. There's no like group of partners in a venture fund, but I look for bootstrappers and people who get that traction because I think they're resourceful, like you were with Flickr or we were with Weblogs Inc. I just like those type of people who rub two nickels together and get a dollar. They're efficient.
Yeah.
But I like to see them go big because in the venture construct, you want to go for big ideas. Big ideas that change the world have a lower mortality rate, right? They die more often. Is that right? So you're a higher mortality rate. They're going to die more often.
Right.
Therefore, the winners, in order to pay off all of those other people swinging for the fences, they need to be really outlier wins. You have to have the 100-to-1 win or the 50-to-1 win. Just when you do your portfolio construction.
But I actually think that that's a misapprehension of what a Zebra business is.
Okay, what's a Zebra business?
Because I actually think that a Zebra business has just as much of a chance as making it big.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, I thought the idea behind zebras, maybe I misunderstood. Well, it's like just one New York Times trend piece, so who knows?
Right.
But it looked to me like it was the sour grapes, we can't get venture capital. We're going to go slow,
right?
Screw the white male patriarchy.
Right, because but one thing that my partners and I, especially at Founder Collective, were super interested in was the proper capitalization of the company, and we love bootstrappers, right?
Yes.
And many of those Zebra companies are bootstrapped.
Great.
And,
check.
Check. We love that.
Well, yeah.
They've also taken it very far. And there's some wonderful blog posts by my, you should go check these out, actually. They're really great, by Eric Paley, who was one of my partners at Founder Collective and works there still.
Yeah.
And he writes about, there's a bunch of articles called When Venture Capital Becomes Vanity Capital. He wrote another one about, chasing the marginal dollar, right? And kind of having to spend that massive amount of capital. And all of the research, kind of did a lot of research to back this theory up, is that, in fact, the less capital that you take in the very early stages, in the first 5 years of your company, leads to a completely different kind of outcome.
For the founders.
Right? For the founders and we are early stage investors, you, me.
No, for the early stage investors, much better.
Yes, VC, much better outcomes. And for the founder, for pretty much, everybody at the table, save, presumably, your Series B, C, D, E, and all the way
vulture
down.
Capitalist.
All the way down.
Vulture capitalist.
Right, the vulture capitalist.
All right, so maybe I'm on board with the Zebra movement.
Right, because
it's just explained to me as like that New York Times story was like VCs are terrible. And I was like,
and I actually,
it was a little too anti.
It was anti, and they were actually not happy with the headline of that because I think it actually belied the actual content of the article because it was a very grabby, attention grabbing headline. But
it's fake news.
But in fact, it was not anti-VC.
Fake news. You may have heard of it. Okay.
Fake news. My last name is Caterina Fake.
Okay.
I have
Caterina Fake news. You heard of the New York Times fake news? But no, the headline was like FVCs or something. It was like shunning venture capital. Like, meanwwith the zebras are like, we want venture capital. Don't say that.
Everyone's like,
no,
hey,
no.
Venture capital, come. But with certain expectations and with certain like a kind of in a different mode, right?
Yeah, I felt like it was a trend piece that Erin got wrong. I think I was a little critical of it because then she wrote another one that was negative as well. I just think she's on this like negative Silicon Valley kick,
down on Silicon Valley.
Well, I mean, it's understandable.
She did write one. I mean, there was so much glory for so long; it had to happen.
Of course.
Right? Because,
I don't have a problem with it. I think like the New York Times is irrelevant to what we do here every day. Like if they're doing a trend piece, it's by definition, the trend's over and they're always 2 years behind the trend. Like the zebra movement was probably Etsy, probably Kickstarter. That was or Blue Bottle. Like those are the true, like we're building this because we love it.
Right.
And we'll go slow if we need to. We'll go faster if we need to. But if you
those are quasi zebra companies that had IPOs, right? So we're not talking about thinking small.
Yeah. It's interesting.
You
are anti-Reid Hoffman.
The blitzscaling model?
You are anti-Nazi blitzscaling.
You are saying this.
I know, controversial.
Not me.
I'm going to claim it.
You're just putting that out there. But, I mean, obviously it's appropriate for X percent of companies. I don't know what the percentage of companies is the right way
Uber,
to do it.
Airbnb. I mean, the examples they give are when you're getting big, you want to just put your foot on the throat of the competitors and crush them by outspending them. That is sort of the blitzscaling idea is there's going to be one winner who takes most, winner take most, not necessarily all. And you want to be that person and you just outspend people. And who cares if it's inefficient if the prize at the end is a unicorn?
Yeah.
You don't like that idea.
Well,
you don't like Reid Hoffman.
I don't like the word blitzkrieg.
Well, I mean, it's interesting too, the blitzscale thing, because he does in the book say,
and I have to admit, I haven't read the book.
Oh, read it. It's I'm halfway through it. It's a little for people like us. It's a little bit too one-on-one where they're explaining like this is what Airbnb is and here's how it grew, and you're just like, okay, yeah, I know these stories. But yeah, he does say we understand that blitzscaling or blitzkrieg was. A lot of people suffered under the blitzkrieg of different, things in World War II, and different parties were murdered. But it comes from Reid got screwed by the Samwer brothers. You remember those cats in Germany?
Of course I do.
These assholes.
I met with Mark Samwer.
Garbage.
All over Samwer.
Garbage.
And
they try to steal your idea?
I am not sure if that was the agenda of the meeting, but it certainly could have been.
They're garbage human beings.
Can you explain? Perhaps you've talked about them.
I'll explain. Samwer brothers.
You should talk about that because
they're Germans,
right?
Who said
blitzkrieg.
We'll blitzkrieg, and this guy writes this like cocaine 3 a.m. email to his team. I don't know if he was doing blow, but it like read like somebody who's high out of their mind on like speed.
Right.
And he's like, I need everybody here to understand that they don't have to know what is right. You must just copy these other companies and you must be willing to beat them in every market that they're not yet in. And I want to blitzkrieg and I want to murder them. And it's just like, dude, you sound like fucking Hitler. Like, it's 3 a.m. Go to bed, take a Xanax, let it wear off. You don't need to admonish your 3,000 employees who are copying LinkedIn and Zynga. Like, they just copied everybody's product.
Right.
And eBay, whatever, everybody. Airbnb, Groupon was the famous one. And they just literally told everybody, copy it pixel by pixel. I don't want you to think. Don't think.
Right.
And I'm like, are you so unself-aware that you're using a Nazi term in business? Like, there might be Jewish people, in your circle, investors, employees. Like, how dare you?
It's the Luftwaffe.
Yeah. Like, it's bonkers. Like, a total lack of self-awareness that even if you're the most competitive person in the world, using Nazi metaphors as a German person is really dumb. Like, super offensive. Super offensive.
And what had happened? Had LinkedIn been copied by the Samwer brothers? Is
Yes,
this where,
and that's why Reed's got an axe to grind with them. Also, a lot of Reed's investment had been copied by them, and famously, Groupon, Andrew Mason, bought their version, and he told the Airbnb guys, listen, there's nothing you can do. You just got to bite the bullet. But I think Andrew Mason kind of enabled them a bit by doing that. And I don't know if it was exactly Andrew Mason or his board's decision to buy them out when they went public. But the Airbnb guys got feedback from Reed and some other folks like Zuckerberg or whatever. It's just like, just make your product better. Don't enable this bad behavior. And I was told by 2 or 3 people, because they wanted to meet with me when I was doing Mahalo, and I canceled the meeting with them. I was at DLD. I had coffee with them set up. They had really been studying the site because I was tracking their IP addresses when they were on the site, because I sent them an invite to it, and they were like really up in it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I can't meet. And they're like, oh, we really want to meet you. I was like, yeah, I'm not available. It's like, because I had like 3 people tell me they're just going to steal your idea.
Right.
This is horrible. No, for people like us, don't you find it super offensive when somebody does a pixel by pixel theft? I mean, it's one thing to say, I'm going to make another photo sharing site.
Right.
And I'm going to make SmugMug and try to make it different or better or 500 pixels. I have my own spin on it. But the copying is so offensive to me.
Pixel for pixel.
Pixel by pixel. It's kind of fitting.
Yeah.
It's not.
Somebody did that once, but
To Flickr?
Yeah, somebody did that to Flickr, but it wasn't them. I'm trying to remember who it was.
It's just so offensive. It's like Zuck with stealing Snapchat's features, putting stories into Instagram, and like he got Kevin Systrom, which I think was part of the reason Kevin left. What I heard was he was just tired of like Zuckerberg telling him that, you know, the Instagram team's ideas are not as important as killing Snapchat.
Right.
Can you imagine going to work for Zuckerberg? Don't sell your company to Zuckerberg. Don't enable that madness. I can say it.
Are they doing a lot of acquisitions these days? Because
I don't think
I haven't seen any. I mean, you know, usually they get written up somewhere, but
no, I think the last one was Oculus on the shelf behind you, but I don't think the government is going to let them make a big one again.
Yeah.
Because of what happened with the Russians and all this other stuff.
Right.
And also I think founders are kind of hip to, if you don't sell, you'll be worth more. So even Snapchat not selling, I think it offered them $2 billion. And maybe they were worth as much as 20, and maybe they're worth 5 or 10 now. It still was the right move to not sell.
Right. It was still more than they
more than Zuck. And you don't have to sell your soul and say, my baby was destroyed.
Right.
When we were selling our companies, we had 2 choices.
Right.
Shut down or sell.
Well, I mean, I also know from having talked to Zuckerberg on behalf of Yahoo Corp Dev that he stood to make a lot more money.
For sure. No, he knows it. Don't sell. Go public.
Right, don't sell. Right.
We have all this
right.
incredible market. All right, listen. Everybody go to do a search for Should This Exist in your...
Better yet, go to iTunes.
Oh, iTunes. And search for it there.
Yeah. Go to iTunes and search for Should This Exist.
And then subscribe.
And listen, subscribe. And we'd really appreciate it if you liked it to give us a rating.
Yes, it's super important.
Because you know how that works, right?
If you get ratings, you move up.
If you get ratings and engagement,
you move up.
People listen to your... It's a trailer right now, but it launches,
when?
Get this?
February?
Tomorrow.
Oh, perfect.
Right?
All right, everybody.
So
get in there. Should This Exist?
Tomorrow. The first episode will be out tomorrow. Perfect.
Congratulations. All right. ShouldThisExist.com. Should This Exist on the Twitter. And at Caterina.
Yes.
It was delightful to have you on the podcast finally. Let's do it again.
Yes.
In a year.
That was great.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.